Coloring Way Outside the Lines. I'm Jeff Tobe. Over the course of the next 3+ hours, I'd like to walk you through 6 modules that individually can be used for training, knowledge, or just plain fun watching. I appreciate you making investment in the future of your organization. The 6 models, they're creative thinking, customer experience, customer engagement, employee engagement, asking the right questions, and then communication skills. These DVDs were filmed in front of a small entrepreneurial audience, and the concepts can be applied to any sized organization. I hope that you can use the material to benefit you personally and professionally. To continue your journey along the road to creating a new customer experience, I encourage you to consider buying my latest book, Anticipate: Knowing What Customers Need Before They Do, for you and your employees, by simply going online to www.anticipatebook.com. That's www.anticipatebook.com. In hopes that you get a lot out of this DVD series, please feel free to contact me with any questions, suggestions, or comments at jeff@jefftobe.com. That's Jeff, Jeff, at jefftobe, jefftove.com. I welcome your feedback. Thanks again for coloring way outside the lines.
Thank you all for watching. And welcome again. I'm so glad that you're here. And so I think that because it's late in the afternoon, we need to get the energy up a little bit. So if you don't mind, when I ask you an appropriate question, would you answer with the word absolutely? Let's try it. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3.
Absolutely.
No. See, it's energy I'm looking for. And we're going to talk about coloring outside the lines, about getting outside your comfort zone, taking a look at whatever profession you're in differently than you have before. So my job this afternoon is to make you feel uncomfortable. How cool is that? So with that in mind, every time you say absolutely, I want you to throw up your left hand with a fist like you mean it. If we all do it, you won't look silly. Come on. 1, 2, 3.
Absolutely.
All right. So would you like to leave here a little more creative than when you came in today?
Absolutely.
Want to have some fun?
Absolutely.
Oh, want to figure out a guaranteed method to triple your personal income by April of next year and take the rest of the year off? Absolutely. In your dreams. I can't help you with that. Maybe I should say, welcome to Amway. No, I'm just kidding. No, I do want to talk to you about coloring outside the lines, and it is about getting outside your comfort zone. So let me ask you a question. Forget about who you know and who you're sitting beside. By a show of hands, how many of you truly believe you are one of the most creative people you know? Okay, we got some work to do. I truly believe everybody's creative. When were we most creative in our lives? All of us. When we were kids, right? I spoke for Kraft Foods last week. I had a guy say when I was dating. Not what I was looking for. No. It's when we were kids. So it didn't just fall off. I mean, it's there inside every one of us. And what we're going to talk about today is how do you access that natural creativity and use it to your advantage every single day. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I walk around all day saying, nobody likes me, what happens? Nobody likes me. If I walk around all day saying, I'm not creative, I'm just not the creative type, guess what? You're not. So the first part of this is telling yourself you are one of the most creative people you know. How many of you have heard of the 21-day rule? 21 days, what does it mean? Just tell me. Yeah, 21 days to make, break, or change a habit. Actually, I'm glad so many of you knew that because it comes from AA, so good to know my audience. So yeah. A little late for you guys, isn't it? Sure, yeah. No, wonderful organization. I certainly don't mean to make fun of them. Many years ago, AA said if you could stop drinking for 21 days, you wouldn't break the habit, but you'd get over the first hurdle. So it was translated to mean 21 days to make, break, or change any habit. One of my simple goals to you this afternoon is this. If I could get you to go back and look at what you do every day and ask yourself, what is it that we do that's strictly habitual? What do we do just because that's the way we've always done it? You're already being more creative by questioning the norm. See, we do it all the time, personally, professionally. We do things out of habit and we don't realize it until we start to question it. I'll prove it to you. If you're wearing a watch or a bracelet, would you take it off and hold it up, please? Great. Now, one of the things that I promised you was I was going to give you some tips this afternoon to increase your bottom line. Here's the first one. Pass them to the front. No, I'm okay. I always wondered if that would work. No, keep them up, keep them up. As quickly as you can, I want you to take that watch or bracelet and I want you to put it back on the other arm. I know you don't want to. I know it's uncomfortable. Please appease me. And by the way, this is the only team building portion of my talk. If you have trouble doing this, it's okay to ask somebody beside you for help, all right? Now, if you've never done that before, how awkward is that? When did it just gain a pound from one arm to the other? But here's my challenge. Until you go to bed tonight, I'm going to ask you to force yourself to wear this watch on your other arm. As uncomfortable as this feels, every time you go to look at the time today, I want you to ask yourself, what else do I do that's strictly a habit? That's all this is. If for the next 21 days or so, you consciously put this watch on your other arm, after 21 days, it would start to feel comfortable. The things I want to share with you this afternoon aren't necessarily going to feel comfortable. The changes you've gone through in any one of your businesses and your industries or professions can't possibly feel comfortable. But 21 days of trying something new to see if it doesn't feel more comfortable for you. And by the way, if there are people in the room you don't know, at any of the breaks this afternoon, go up to them and ask them what time it is. Let's make them look silly. Okay, so let's start with a basic definition of creativity. Why do I think it's so important? For 20 years, I've been traveling the world talking about creative thinking as it applies to the customer experience. By the way, most people say they're not one of the most creative people they know because they associate creativity with the fine arts, don't we? I'm not creative because I can't paint, I can't sketch, I can't arrange a flower bouquet, I'm just not creative. Creativity in a business sense is simply a questioning process. It's the ability to look at something differently than everybody else. Now, I have to tell you how bizarre I think you're working with this afternoon. So, question, how many of you have been through Chicago O'Hare Airport in the last decade or so? Oh, most of you, good. I have to apologize to all the ladies in the room. I want to tell you a little bit about the men's room in Chicago O'Hare Airport. Oh, I know this is great afternoon conversation, but I have no experience in the ladies' room. I've only got experience in the men's room, and in the men's room is one of the neatest gadgets I've ever seen. What is it? Anybody know? Anybody know what it is? Not a shoe polisher, no. It's an automatic seat cover. Now, you've been in the men's room in Chicago? I assume it's been in the ladies' room too. Yeah, it's an automatic seat cover. Now, when I first saw this thing about 15 years ago, it used to be a little red button. You'd push the button and automatically this plastic seat cover would come out around the seat. I go through Chicago all the time. They've now changed them. It's a sensor on the wall. You have to wave at the wall for this thing to work. How dumb do you feel doing that, right? But you heard in my introduction, my background is in advertising. So the first time I saw this thing, I press that button, this thing comes out. I'm thinking to myself, this is wasted space. There's nothing written on it, right? Now don't get ahead of me, but in those days, you used to be able to lift open the back of the gadget itself. Not the toilet, but the actual gadget, and I wanted to see how it worked. So I lift it open, I look inside, and the first thing I realize is that you can rewind it manually. In other words, once it comes out, you can send it back in. Now, I know it's not very sanitary, but now I've got an idea. So I reach into my briefcase, I pull out a marker, and I wrote on it. I put, "Help, I'm stuck inside and I can't get out." I rewound it. Oh, come on, think of the next poor guy that sat on that thing, right? Oh, I don't know. And then that night, I'm flying home from Chicago to Pittsburgh, where I live, and I start laughing out loud. And the poor lady sitting beside me on the airplane has no idea why I'm cracking up. For some strange reason, I pictured the next poor guy to sit on this thing. That night, he's undressing in front of his wife, and there it is. Well, actually be backwards, but there it is. Enough bathroom humor. I promise it's as low as we'll go. The point. How do we train ourselves to look at something that hundreds, I don't know, maybe thousands of people see in any given day differently than everybody else? That's what creative thinking is all about. How do you look at your business, at your profession, differently than everybody else who professes to be in the same business? So let me ask you a question. Why? Why be more creative at what you do? Anyone? Yeah, how do we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace? Again, all those people who say they're in the same business, what sets us apart from everybody else? Why else would you be more creative? Yeah.
Have more fun.
Have more fun. Wouldn't you agree with me that people want to do business with, they want to work for, work with people who seem to enjoy what they do for a living? Okay, that was pathetic. Listen, there are going to be some tests throughout the afternoon. You just failed miserably. Let's try that again. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
I think the number one reason to be more creative is to have more fun. It's contagious. Let me ask you in another way. How many of you have been doing what you do, not necessarily for the same organization, but doing what you do for longer than 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years? Why are you still there? 25 years or more. Would you agree with me that your profession has changed a little bit in the last 25 years? Absolutely, yeah. Never mind the last 25 minutes you've been in the building, right? Things are changing so rapidly at what we do every day, I can't think of a better reason to color outside the lines. There was a study done, I'm dating myself, it was done in 1988. I'll tell you why I go back so far to quote it. But in 1988, SMU Business School in Dallas, Texas, and they studied change in major industries and professions in the United States and Canada. Here's what they found. If you were in business in 1988, you went through a major change in general every 3 years. It meant that something you were doing was going to change drastically by 1991. Now, they redid the study now a year and a half ago for the third time, and they found that 3 years has been reduced to 7 months. 7 months. Instinctively, we know this, but what does it mean? Something we're doing right now, it's standard practice, it just works for us, is going to change drastically over the next 7 months. I can't think of a better reason to color outside the lines. So I've got one more challenge for you. When you leave here today, I want you to try something. I want you to get into your cars in the parking lot, and I want you all to drive home only looking in your rearview mirrors. Okay, couldn't do it, right? But I've been in Pittsburgh. I swear you guys do this all the time, right? Yeah, no, you couldn't do it. I'm going to beat you up a little bit. I find so many people, it doesn't matter what business or what profession they're in, get into the proverbial cars every single day. Your workplace, your cubicle, your office, the plant, the hospital, it doesn't matter where you do what you do, but we approach what we're doing only looking in our rearview mirrors to see how it's always been done before. Great saying. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. New unofficial saying for you guys is, if it ain't broke, break it, right? Title of a great book by Robert Kriegler. If it ain't broke, break it. I'm looking for sweat now. Great idea. Don't tell the folks back home. I truly believe that for survival in any business today, it takes some breaking of some rules. But understand something. There's a warning that comes with coloring outside the lines. It's okay to color outside the lines as long as you don't fall off the page. You have to figure out, where is the edge of the page for you personally? Where is the edge of the page for my customer, my client, my patient? How far can we go before we've colored too far? But here's what happens. So many of us have been doing what we do for such a long time. Very early on in our careers, we are right on the edge of the page, technology-wise, resource-wise, knowledge-wise. But as our careers grow, the page grows with it, and some of us are still back here. So today, coloring outside the lines is simply about checking the edge of the page. Everybody okay? Absolutely. You're doing great. So I wanted to tell you a story, and I'm going to read it with you. It'll be up on the screen, but the story is called The Gorilla Story. This story starts with a cage containing 5 gorillas and a large bunch of bananas hanging above some stairs in the center of the cage. Before long, a gorilla goes to the stairs and starts to climb toward the bananas. As soon as he touches the stairs, all the gorillas are sprayed with cold water. After a while, another gorilla makes an attempt and gets the same result. All the gorillas are sprayed with cold water. Every time a gorilla attempts to retrieve the bananas, the others are sprayed. Eventually, they quit trying and leave the bananas alone. One of the original gorillas is removed from the cage and replaced with a new one. The new gorilla sees the bananas and starts to climb the stairs. To his horror, all the other gorillas attack him. After another attempt and attack, he knows that if he tries to climb the stairs, he'll be assaulted. Next, the second of the original 5 gorillas is replaced with a new one. The newcomer goes to the stairs and is attacked. The previous newcomer takes part in the punishment with enthusiasm. Next, the third original gorilla is replaced with a new one. The new one goes for the stairs and is attacked as well. 2 of the 4 gorillas that beat him have no idea why they're participating in the beating of the newest gorilla or why they're not permitted to climb the stairs. After the 4th and 5th original gorillas have been replaced, all the gorillas that were sprayed with cold water are gone. Nevertheless, no gorilla will ever again approach the stairs. Why not? Because of consequences. How does it remind us of some of the environments we work in, that we've worked in the past maybe? Anybody? How does it remind you? What saying? We've never what? We've never done it. We've always done it this way, right? Sorry, we've always done it that way. So I have 3 questions I'd like to ask you. When it comes to change, when it comes to being a gorilla or working in a gorilla environment, why is change so threatening? How can we help break gorilla thinking? And what motivates people to move out of their comfort zone? So what I'd like you to do is, would you sort of pair up? 3 of you is fine if you can get together somewhere in your row. And here's how we're going to do it. The first row, I'm going to have you all in your pairs answer the first question. Why is change so threatening? One of you will kind of report back, all right? The second and third row, we're going to get you to do the second one. How can we break through gorilla thinking? And in the back row, would you work on on what motivates people to move out of their comfort zone? We're only going to take 4 or 5 minutes, but work together in pairs or triplets, and we'll get you to come back. All right, come on back. Thank you for doing that. We're going to have some of you report. We don't have time to have everybody report what you came up with, but Jason, would you mind starting your group? The first question is, why is change so threatening?
Sure. I think that, first of all, it's associated with a lot of fear. We have fear of things like the unknown. Even if something's comfortable and familiar for us, even if it's not that good, at least we know it, we understand it. So change represents what we fear. Change represents risk. If you have anything that's impacting your self-esteem or your self-image, at least you know what you're dealing with now, and there again, you have to learn something new.
Let me interrupt too and say that change is also the perceived threat of risk as well. Sometimes it's not even real, right? It's not even real risk, but it's how we perceive the risk.
So that plays into what we're comfortable with, our comfort zone. And ultimately, I think that we fear change because it may represent more work that we have to do.
Right. It's not in my job. It wasn't in my job description. It looks like it's going to result in more work. Thank you very much. I'm going to go over to the end here, ladies. Same thing. Anybody have anything different? Great. Anybody think of any other reason why change is so threatening? All right, good. Well, the second question is, how do we break through gorilla thinking? So, Bob, I'm going to pass it to you. Are you the scribe? Or there we go. Here we go. There you go. And if you wouldn't mind facing the camera, that'd be great.
Well, we thought the first way that you could break gorilla thinking is to brainstorm and ask why. Why have we always done it that way? And it helps to get research or feedback from outside your comfort zone or your own circle. Maybe seek answers from outside your industry. Also, you have to remove the fear and or the consequences.
Excellent. How else do we break through gorilla thinking? Anyone? Yeah, please.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about was, along with understanding why the present behavior is the way it is what would be the benefits of modifying the behavior? What could be gained by taking on a different behavior? And in this case, obviously, it could be if there were 5 bananas, everybody gets one.
Right, right. So maybe sharing the spoils a little bit and some kind of vision as to where we're going. I will tell you, I worked with a group of CEOs last week in Cincinnati, 11 CEOs, fairly large corporations. And I asked them the same question, how do we break through guerrilla thinking? And one of the guys said, that's easy. Never get rid of one guerrilla at a time. Get rid of all of them, he said. And I think he went back and proceeded to fire his entire executive team. So I just want you to know. Any other way to break through guerrilla thinking? Anything else we have to do? I think a lot of times, you hear incentive of some kind. We have to incentivize people to break through. But I also tell you, I just heard last night on an airplane that about a new book. I don't know the content of the book. I just like the title. It's called The First 90 Days. And the premise is that the people who come to work with us for the first 90 days are our best resource. They're the ones who aren't guerrillas yet. And because they're not, they're the ones whose insight we should solicit. They're the ones who we should be saying, you're bringing a whole new perspective. Tell us what we need to do differently. So maybe that mentality as well would help break through guerrilla thinking. The other thing is maybe we change the person who's spraying the guerrillas in the first place. Right? How do we break through it? Well, maybe we have to look at the organization and find out what is it in our culture. One of my goals for this afternoon, just so you understand, is not to change your business. It's to make a little shift in your culture. That's all. A little shift, because if we go back and we say we're going to change our business and we tell our people that hair on the back of their neck starts to stand up, right? Change because of the perception of risk, the perception of failure. Instead, we're going to make a small shift in the way we look at what we do. All right, the third question, Eric, would you mind taking that back? The third question is, what motivates people to move out of their comfort zone? Would one of the groups in the back volunteer? Great.
Thank you. We didn't have a clear consensus, even among the four of us. To the forefront were pain, number one, and pleasure. Okay. I'm not sure if that was exactly the priority order. Then we moved to reward. A possibility, and then personally I feel it's different from everyone, so every employee has their own something that motivates them.
Excellent. So it's basically finding out what motivates people and then trying to work with them in a way in which they need to be worked with. You're going to hear that as part of the theme this afternoon. Thank you so much. All right, so when we talk about change, one more thing I wanted to show you. I can only show you graphically, so bear with me. When I talk in front of any group, one of the things the words that I use, it makes some people feel uncomfortable because I speak to doctors, I speak to educators, it doesn't matter who I'm speaking to, I use the word customer. From this point on, I will use the word customer throughout my entire presentation. The reason I do that is because I need you in your minds to distinguish between internal customer and external customer. External, every one of you can define your external customer. Internal customer is anybody without whom we can't do what we do every single day. And it doesn't matter if you're a one-person operation or if you've got 5,000 people. Your internal customer, maybe I'll change your paradigm a little bit. I have a very small company. There's only 2 of us. My UPS driver is an internal customer. If he doesn't show up on the afternoons that I need him to pick up my parcels, I'm out of business. So he's a vital part to doing what I do every single day. And there's a paradigm shift. We should be his customer, and I hope we are, but we treat him as an internal customer. The reason I say that is because when it comes to driving change through the organization, when it comes to thinking more creatively, there are only 2 issues on your customers' minds. They look like this. 1, 2. It's late. We're going to keep it simple. Here we go. The first is cost, and the second is value. And unfortunately, that's the ratio between the 2. Let me explain. Everybody sitting in this room probably knows this isn't true in your own business. And I'm not talking about the price of your services, the price of your goods, whatever it is you're selling. I'm talking about the perceived cost of doing what you're asking me to do versus the perceived value, what's in it for me. Gen Ys, you can close your ears for a minute. I want to talk about you. This new generation that's coming to the workplace, this is their mentality. It's not good, it's not bad, I'm not being judgmental, but for more than any other generation, this generation is saying, for everything we ask them to do, prove to me the value versus the perceived cost of doing it. So when I talk about creative thinking this afternoon, I'm talking about how do we creatively increase this value in our customers' minds versus the perceived cost of what it is we're asking them to do. I think I can explain this better if you'll allow me. I'll take it outside of what you all do. Well, some of you are speakers as well, and I'm glad you're here. Because you know what we do for a living, we speak for a living. But what I really do is I sell dates on my calendar. That's what I do. If I sell a date on my calendar, it means business for my company. So going back to May of now 7.5 years ago, I took a 23-day trip. 23 days straight of speaking. Now, most of you don't know me that well, but even with my ego, I got sick of hearing myself talk. It's a long time. But even worse, I now have a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old. 2 daughters, disaster. Think about it, 7.5 years ago, disasters for family life. I've been gone for over 3 weeks. I remember getting home on a Tuesday night, and I'll tell you how I remember that in a minute, but I sat them down at the dinner table. I said, look, this will never happen again. We're going to start a thing in the house called the 5-day rule. Goes like this. Dad will never again go out for longer than 5 days in a row, and if I do, I'll stay home for the same amount of time. By the way, I'm very proud of the fact that 7.5 years later, it's now the 3-day rule. It was a 5-day rule then. The reason I remember it was a Tuesday night, right, that I got home, first telephone call Wednesday morning. You know what happened. First call. It's a gentleman from Dallas, Texas. He said, Jeff, I'd like you to come down and do a full day's customer experience workshop with my entire staff. I said, Paul, I'd love to. When? He said, check your calendar for some date in August. I checked my calendar. It's a Saturday. I'm available. But I realized right away that I'm out from Monday through Friday the week before. Somebody is testing me. So I bite my tongue a little bit. I said, Paul, I can't do it. And before I could even tell him why, he said, Jeff, don't give up so easily. Now, who's convincing who here? This is great. He said, when you were in Dallas, you told me you love video games. Now, I don't remember telling him that, but I do. Since I was a kid, I'll sit down and play a video game anytime, any place. And I'm talking old video games, by the way. Miss Pac-Man and Asteroids. Some of you will remember. He said, we're holding our entire conference at a place in Dallas called Dave & Buster's. How many of you know this place? How would you describe it for somebody who doesn't? An adult arcade. That kind of sounds like porno. So why don't we go with adult Chuck E. Cheese? How's that? Yeah, with alcohol, right? Yeah, so what is it? It's like 1 million square feet of adult video games with some burgers in between. What's happened? Paul has no idea why I can't make his engagement, but subconsciously he's saying the cost must be greater than the value, and he's right. The perceived cost of being away from my family is far greater than the perceived value of doing his session. But by mentioning video games, guess what? This starts to grow. And believe it or not, I am convinced this is the key to success in business today. Let me explain. I'd venture to guess that most of you would not be turned on by video games. But I was Paul's customer at that very moment. Paul realized, what would increase the value specific to me at that very moment? Video games. But here's where your work comes in. It's not a one-size-fits-all for our customers anymore. For every individual customer, we have to figure out what is it that will increase the value specific to you at this very moment. And where your work comes in is that you have to keep doing it to assure that this is bigger than this. In my scenario, I still have my 5-day rule. I haven't explained it yet. That can't be big enough. I finally get a chance to explain it. You know what he said? Jeff, don't give up so easily. What did he say? When I told him about my 5-day rule, what did he say? Bring them with you. I said, who, my wife? He said, no, bring the whole family. I said, ooh, guess what? That's getting bigger, right? But reality sets in. I'm looking at my calendar, and I realize that Friday night, the night before he needs me in Dallas, I think I was in Montreal, Canada, doing an after-dinner talk. There's no way that you can fly from Montreal to Dallas after midnight or so in time to open up his 8 o'clock meeting. I fly all the time. It can't be done. I explained it to him. You know what he said? You know what he said? Jeff, don't give up so easily, right? Put me on hold. Came back 20 seconds later, he said, no problem. I said, Paul, it's a problem. You can't possibly do it. He said, it's not a problem if I send the company jet. I said, send the jet, don't worry about my fee. No, I didn't say that, if any of you have a jet. The point is this. As we go through the afternoon, and hopefully there are little things you can take back for your business, keep this, as messy as it is, keep this model in mind. How does what I can take back increase the value for my customers versus the perceived cost of what it is we're asking them to do? Everybody okay? Absolutely. I think you're okay. I think you're ready. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this. I want to tell you a story. And the story will not work without your help. I have some characters throughout my story, and I have questions. If you know the answer to a question, as uncomfortable as it's going to feel, especially in the back, I need you just to yell out the answer. But there's more. I have characters as well. If you like a character and what they're doing, I want you to literally cheer them on. Call a little clapping, little cheering will get the blood moving. If you don't like a character, booing and hissing is acceptable. Will you help me? Absolutely. See what happens. The story takes place in a fictitious land. Through the middle of the land is a very fast-flowing, very deep river. So fast-flowing, so deep, no human being can walk across it. They can't swim across it. They can't wade across it. On one side of the river, we find our first character. Very creatively, her name is Miss A. Now, I am not an artist, as you're about to find out. Here she is. Isn't she lovely? Absolutely. Some desperate men in the crowd. That's great. Good. On the other side of the river, we have our second character. His name is Mr. B. Oh, you've heard it before. No, it is Mr. B, and that's what I need you to do is just yell it out. There's Mr. B on the other side of the river, and he doesn't look much better. Miss A and Mr. B on either side of the river for a long time. They develop a wonderful relationship by yelling back and forth, but they both realize they can't get across to each other. The river is too fast-flowing, too deep. One day they realize they've fallen madly in love. Okay, I have to stop. I had the opportunity last year to speak to the HRPAO, Human Resource Professionals Association of Ontario. 1,500 HR professionals in the room. I said they fall madly in love, and all I heard was, it's a whole different reaction, isn't it? All right, so Miss A is frustrated, can't get across to Mr. B. Out of frustration, she yells to Mr. B, Mr. B, I love you. Stay there. I'm going to find a way across this river. Aww. Not sure about that, right? So she walks down the riverbank and eventually comes across Mr. C. You're catching on. Mr. C. Now, Mr. C is just a little guy. No chairs for little guys. But Mr. C has it is a boat. You got boat from that? That's great, yeah. I spoke for Verizon Wireless. I had a guy say, a cell phone. What's with that? He's going to call across the river, right? No, it's a boat. There's a boat. Okay. Miss A approaches Mr. C. Mr. C, can you help me? I'm in love with Mr. B, but I can't get across the river. The river's too fast-flowing, too deep. You have a boat. Will you take me across? He says, of course I will. Aww. If you'll kiss me. She said, what did you say? He said, that's right, I'll take you across. All you got to do is kiss me. She said, I can't kiss you. I'm in love with Mr. B. Mr. C looks at her and says, then I can't take you across the river. Go away. Poor Miss A. But she knows we've got more paper. So she walks down the riverbank and eventually she comes across Mr. D. Now Mr. D is sitting. Spoke to a group of chiropractors. They complained about his posture. All right, Miss A approaches Mr. D. Mr. D, can you help me? I'm in love with Mr. B, but I can't get across the river. The river's too fast-flowing, too deep. Mr. D's got a boat. He had to kiss him. We can kiss him. I'm in love with Mr. B. Mr. D, will you help? He says, no. You'll catch up. She said, why not? Said, I don't want to get involved. Go away. Poor Miss A. But she makes up her mind. She decides to go back to Mr. C and to acquiesce, to give in. True to his word, he takes her across the river. She's finally on the other side. She runs to Mr. B. Mr. B, I'm here. He says, great. How did you get here? She said, thanks for asking. I was in love with you across the river, but I couldn't get across. Too fast flowing, too deep. Mr. C's got a boat. He said, kiss me. I wouldn't kiss him. I was in love with you. Went to Mr. D. Wouldn't even get involved. Back to Mr. C, gave him a little kiss. He brought me across, and here I am. Oh, you try that in the afternoon sometime. Tough crowd. Mr. B looks at Miss A and says, I don't want you anymore. She said, what did you say? He said, that's right, I don't want you anymore. If you had to do that just to get across the river, I don't want you anymore. Go away. Poor Miss A. Now totally rejected, dejected on the other side of the river, not knowing what to do. Miss A walks down the riverbank totally forlorn, but eventually she comes across Mr. E. Yeah, and if you thought this was bad, watch this. Mr. E is not alone. Nope, Mr. E's on it is a horse. I can't believe you got horse from that. That's great, yeah. Same guy that said cell phone, I got this far, he said jet ski. So, no, it's a horse. I don't know how to draw a horse. Come on, a horse, yes? Horse? Horse, yes? Yeah, and not just any horse, it's a white horse. Ooh, and he's dressed in white. Miss A approaches him. He looks at her, he says, you look terrible. What's the matter? She said, I'm going to tell you. Oh, no. I was in love with Mr. B across the river, but I couldn't get across. Too fast flowing, too deep. When Mr. C's got a boat, he said to kiss him. I wouldn't kiss him. I was in love with Mr. B. Went to Mr. D. Wouldn't even get involved. Back to Mr. C, gave him a little kiss. He brought me across. Mr. B wouldn't take me anymore. What am I going to do? Most people clap there. That's oh no. Pity applause is never appreciated. So Mr. E looks at Miss A and says, I'll take you just the way you are. I don't care about your past. I don't care what's happened. Hop onto my white horse. We'll ride off into the sunset. She does. They do. End of story. Okay. Can I get you to take a little piece of paper and a pen? I want to see how creatively you're thinking. Any piece of paper, a little notepad you had at your chairs. And on that piece of paper, would you write the numbers 1 through 5 in a column? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, top to bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, top to bottom. We have 5 characters, Miss A through Mr. E. As quickly as you can, I want you to rank them. I want you to rank them according to how much you respect them. In other words, number 1 will be the character you respect the most. Number 5 will end up being the character you respect the least, and everybody in between. Now, getting to know what some of you do for a living, I have one warning. Do not overanalyze these, all right? They are not real. But if you know the theme to Jeopardy, now's the time to hum it, sing it, whistle it. Anybody? All right, by a show of hands, how many of you would put Miss A in the top 2 of your list? Look around, as my 22-year-old would say, well, duh, right? Sure. Cindy, why? Why would you put her there?
Because she had desires and she went after them. She was going to have to get them.
Absolutely. She had desire, she took action. Why else? Anybody else? Yes.
What I like best is when she got to the other side of the river, she didn't want to try to get back.
When she got to the other side of the river, she didn't try to get back. I need to repeat it for the camera, but sure, absolutely. Any other reason? Only woman up there? I heard that. Yeah, we'll take that as well. Sure. How about the fact that she was resourceful? Now, what's resourcefulness? It's creative thinking. It's what most of you do every day, working with limited resources to get to our goal, no matter what it takes. But hold on. Will anybody join me in putting her near the bottom of your list? Why, Chris?
Because she sacrificed something that would be ethical, I think.
Sacrifice something was unethical. You're being very kind. You're sort of dodging the whole thing. What a hussy! Oh, this woman has no morals, no principles. She'll go with any one of these guys if they say yes. She'll do whatever it takes to get across the river. Look, you and I are about to start a fight. Let's go on. Mr. B. Anybody put Mr. B near the top of their list by any chance? Why, Ron?
He had his standards.
Yeah, he had his morals, his standards, and he stuck to them. If they truly had this relationship, wouldn't she have known what he expected? I think so. Watch what happens. Anybody put him near the bottom of the list by any chance? Why? Yeah, first of all, why did he make her walk down the riverbank? Why didn't he do it? Oh, look, every woman in the room just went, yeah. Almost every guy just went, huh? Right? Ladies, we see something you don't see. Right here in his right hand, really, really small, it's a little remote control. He's watching a football game. He's not going anywhere, right? What a jerk. He didn't appreciate what she had to do to get across the river. Could be the bottom of your list. Mr. C's got a boat. Anybody put him near the top of their list by any chance? Why? He stuck to his principles. He had a price and he stuck to it. He's got a boat, for God's sake. Sure. Anybody put him near the bottom of their list by any chance? Why, Renee?
It was all about him and what he wanted, and he wasn't willing to work with him.
Right. He was all about him. What else? Why else would you put him near the bottom? Anybody? Sleazy, right? He took advantage of the situation, didn't he, Gail? As a matter of fact, maybe his price is a little unreasonable, seeing as he has the only solution up there. Or does he? Let's go on to Mr. D, sitting in a chair. Anybody put Mr. D near the top of their list by any chance? Nobody. His guy's near the top of my list. I mean, probably the most honest guy up there. Why should he get involved? He doesn't know what's happening down the river. Anybody put him near the bottom of their list by any chance? Why, Jason?
Because he, even though he saw that somebody had a need, he was unwilling to help at any cost.
Even though somebody had a need, he was unwilling to help. He didn't get involved. He didn't even stand up when our damsel in distress came along. I forgot to give him feet. Okay, he still wouldn't have stood up. Had he stood up, he might realize he's sitting in a chair. The chair might float. Sometimes we have to get off our back ends to find another answer to the exact same challenge. We'll talk more about creative thinking in a minute, but finally, Mr. E's on a white horse. Would anybody by any chance put Mr. E near the top of their list? Of course. Why? Nadine, why?
Because he was open-minded.
He was open-minded. Why else? Anybody? Why else would you put him there?
He was willing to look for something new.
Look.
Alone, now he had somebody.
Absolutely. Willing to look for something new? Sure. How about non-judgmental? I'll take you just the way you are. Ladies, who is he really? He's the knight in shining armor. Or I forgot to mention, if any of you women are single, if you're unmarried, I know you're sitting there going, he does not exist. Well, actually, if you're married, you're probably saying that as well. But I forgot to tell you at the beginning, this is a fairy tale, okay? But you know where I'm going. Will anybody join me in putting Mr. E near the bottom of your list? Why? He took advantage, didn't he? This guy is so far down my list, he won't go any further. But I have an advantage. I've been telling the story now for almost 3 years. I lay awake at nights thinking about Mr. E. Let me explain. Here's my theory. Do you think he just happened to be sitting there on a white horse? I don't think so. I think this has happened before. Think about it. Some woman got rejected, walked down the riverbank. He didn't have a horse. She walks right by him. He says, next time I'm going to get me a horse. Are you kidding? In my theory, these two guys are strategic partners. It's my theory. Give yourselves a hand. You're doing great. Come on. What's the point? What could it possibly have to do with being more creative when it comes to the customer experience? I don't know, but it was fun. Anyone? What's the point? Thank you. Just because I put Mr. E at the bottom of my list, does it mean I'm wrong? Some of you will say yes. No, I'm not wrong. It's just a different perspective. A different perspective of the exact same situation that you all saw. And that's where creative thinking starts in our business. Are you willing, some of you after 20-something years, to step back and look at your business, your profession, from a different perspective? I'll use an analogy. I'm not a photographer, but I would venture to guess that if I were, and I wanted to take a photo of a beautiful white snowy landscape, I pick up my camera and I put on a blue lens, because today I just feel like putting on a blue lens. I look through my camera, that landscape is now blue. But in reality, it hasn't changed. It's still white. But unless you look through my camera, you can't possibly see the same thing that I see. And perspective is a scary thing. We work with somebody for years. We think we know their perspective. We live with somebody for years. We think we know their perspective. And one day it changes instantly. And we're sitting there saying to ourselves, whoa, what's the matter with him? Or what's the matter with her? When we should be saying, what's the matter with me? Why? If I'm constantly checking in with you to see what is it that will increase the value specific to you at this very moment, I'm never surprised that your perspective has changed. And perspective can change instantly. It can change because of something that happened from the minute they left home this morning till the minute they got to work. We constantly and consistently need to check with our customer, what is your perspective at this very moment? And let me, if you'll allow me, I'm going to tell the story one more time, very quickly, as you know. Let me show you how quickly I can change your perspective by changing the gender. Watch what happens. On this side of the river, we now have Mr. A. I never know what to do with this, so there's a hat and a mustache. I don't know. On the other side of the river is Miss B. Mr. A and Miss B on either side of the river for a long time. They fall madly in love. One day, out of frustration, Mr. A yells to Miss B, I love you so much, stay there. I'm going to find a way across this river. He walks down the riverbank and eventually comes across Miss C. Now, Miss C has a boat. Miss C, I'm in love with Miss B, but I can't get across the river. The river's too fast flowing, too deep. You have a boat. Will you take me across? She says, of course I will. If you'll kiss me. He says, okay. End of story. Your perspective can change. Give yourselves a hand. You're doing great. Come on. So it is about perspective. I went online. I found a couple of examples of perspective.
All the boys are calling crazy girl. I hope she sings this tonight. I know. Hey, Dad, pull over. We need gum.
I'm on it. Oh, honey? Here's some money.
What do we got here?
Hello.
All right, so having raised two teenage girls, I just thought that was perspective. One more, it's my sixth sense of humor. It's totally inappropriate this afternoon, but see what you think.
Look at the cute dog.
All right, so get a little something in your teeth. That's all right. Let's move on. It is about perspective. I have the privilege of traveling worldwide and speaking to so many different industries over the last 21 years. And I got to tell you, when I look at perspective globally, I think that there are only two sides to a coin. And I like to use the analogy of a coin because to me, there's no way, unless you cheat and have a mirror, that you can look at both sides at once. The two sides are fairly simple. The first side is managing the business. The second side is creating value for the customer. There's no other reason to exist. The trouble is, the bigger we get as a company, some of us have those titles. My job is to manage the business. They forget that they have to be reminded that they have to increase the value for the customer. Then we have customer service people, we have marketing people, sales people. Their job is to create value for the customer. They have to be reminded sometimes that there's a business to run as well. See, even to simplify it further, this is what I like to say. I said there are only two roles in any organization, whether you're one person or 100,000 people. You're either customer-facing or you support somebody who's customer-facing. See, one of the things this afternoon that I hope to prove to you is that by becoming more customer-centric, we can better our business. We can better our profession by becoming more focused on the customer. The first step is understanding that either you're customer-facing or you support somebody who's customer-facing. You know, when I wrote the book, Coloring Outside the Lines, I developed this thing that I call the Harvey Principle. Anybody ever see the movie Harvey, Jimmy Stewart? What was it about? Do you remember the premise of it? Anybody? Carl?
Stewart, they thought he was crazy because he used to see a rabbit.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart's character was the only one who could see this 6-foot or 7-foot white rabbit. Now, I watched this movie as a kid, took it at face value, very entertaining. But about 6 or 7 years ago, I rented it to watch with my daughters, and for some reason, I watched it from a whole different perspective, even if you haven't seen the movie. At the beginning of the movie, they want to commit Jimmy Stewart's character to a mental institution. He's obviously crazy. He's the only one who can see this 6-foot white rabbit that he's named Harvey. Watching from a different perspective by the end of the movie, I started to question whether or not he was the crazy one. Maybe, just maybe it was everybody who couldn't see Harvey who was crazy. And I started to think, how does that affect our professional lives? So I developed this thing in the book. It was called the Harvey Principle. It's an entire chapter in the book. But the bottom line is this. It's learning to see invisible opportunities where everyone else sees only visible limitations. Let me say that again. Learning to see invisible opportunities where everyone else says it can't be done. Where everyone else says, we tried that before you got here 4 years ago, it doesn't work. Where everyone else says you can't do that in this profession. That's where the opportunities lie. So in this first module, what we're talking about is that creative thinking. How do we drive that idea through the organization of seeing our Harvey? Well, one more time, I went online. I think I found an opportunity for somebody. See what you think.
Who do you think you're honking at, huh? What, you don't like the way I drive? What, come on in here, I'll give you a driving lesson. You want a piece of me? Why don't you come out and get you some, huh? Where are you gonna go now? Well, you can't speed up by anybody now. You think you're better than me? What, you think, oh, I don't like the way you drive. What, you got a fancy new button? Huh? Keep out!
The Trunk Monkey, a revolutionary idea you'll only find at Suburban Auto Group, pending approval by Attorney General.
All right, back in the trunk.
All right, back in the trunk. Okay, a little violent, I agree, but I think it's a great opportunity for some car company. How about this, a logo? A logo that I guarantee you see every day on a truck going by, on a parcel you send. What's hidden in the FedEx logo? The arrow. Some of you know between the E and the X is a giant white arrow. Now be honest with me, by a show of hands, how many of you had never seen that before? Good. Those of you hands up, keep them up, look around, find somebody with their hand down because they will agree with me. We have just officially driven you crazy. No, you don't understand. You will never again look at the FedEx logo the same way. Am I right? I can prove it to you. Friday night last week, I'm sitting in Minneapolis Airport waiting for a connection. And a FedEx truck a plane is about to take off, and I'm watching it going, don't see it, don't see it, don't see it, don't see it. Ah! You can't help but see it. Why? Our left brain, that analytical, detailed part of our brain, is trained to read it and move on, read it and move on. Now that I've made your right brain, the creative side, aware of that white space, we'll call it the opportunity, your right brain will kick into it every single time. So my question is this, what's right in front of you? It's in that office you've been going to for 20-something years. It's in the plant, it's in the building. Something, it's an opportunity waiting to happen, but you've never allowed the right brain to kick in. We've never allowed the right brain of our organization to kick in to look for those ideas. I will share with you also, I had the wonderful privilege of speaking in India almost 2 years ago now. And after I showed this slide, a young lady came up to me and she said, yes, Mr. Tobe, but what about the measuring spoon in the other E? Yeah, if I have to see it, you have to see it, right? Every single time. All right, so the second part, after perspective, the second part of this is giving yourself what I call an ASK, an ASK, an alternative solution kick. It means when you know you've got the right answer, are you willing to say there's always, always, always more than one right answer to every single challenge your customer brings you? Historically, every invention, every creative idea, every innovative company started because somebody dared to look for the second right answer. Going back to the 1400s, a guy by the name of Gutenberg. He's sitting in a winery in Germany, looks over at this huge piece of machinery they call a wine press, and he realizes that all it does is exert an amazing amount of pressure on grapes to squeeze out the juice to make wine. And he thinks back to recent experience when he got to visit a mint and remembers all these little minting punches that exerted a huge amount of pressure on a little metal disc they called a coin. And he thinks, what if I combine the pressure of this huge wine press with the pressure of all these little minting punches? What idea did he come up with? The printing press. Anybody from Cleveland originally, by any chance? Good, let's pick on them. I was in Cleveland years ago. I asked the same question, what did Gutenberg invent? And I had a woman sitting right where you are who said, oh, he invented the Bible. Okay, first of all, There's a version, Gutenberg's Bible, but I have it on high authority. He did not invent the Bible. What did he do? He looked at two things that had nothing to do with them, brought them together in his mind, and came up with something that we still use in one form or another hundreds of years later. That's the second right answer. Giving yourself an ask. Colt, of revolver fame. Colt came up with the action of the revolver while sitting on the Mississippi watching a paddle wheel go by. Think about it. Montgolfier brothers, they came up with the idea of a hot air balloon when they were sitting in front of a fireplace and they watched a scrap piece of paper float on a hot current of air up the chimney. And my favorite one, Velcro. Anybody know how Velcro was discovered? Oh wait, before I ask you, anybody have young children, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds? Anybody ever have a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old? Have the rest of you seen a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old? Okay, my then 3-year-old, who's now 22, that long ago, came to me one day and she wanted a pair of shoes with Velcro closing. Have you seen these? They don't have laces, they have Velcro. But I guess at 3, this child had never heard the word Velcro before. So she came to me and said, Daddy, I need, because at 3 they need, they don't want, right? I need shoes with ch. I said, excuse me, honey? Ch, the sound it makes, ch. I thought it was very creative. I guess not. I'm very proud of my kids. I have pictures if you want to see them. Wait, how many of you are parents, any age? Okay, I got it. Don't roll your eyes if you don't have kids, but my favorite parent story. When my youngest was about 3, which would make my oldest about 5, I realized one day that something I wanted to do, because I traveled so much when they were young, that I wanted to start a tradition in the house where I would wake up early. If I was home during the week, I'd wake up early, make them a big breakfast, then I'd walk them individually to their buses. It just gave me a little bit of dad time in the morning. Well, do your math. My youngest is 22. I did it until 6 years ago. Oh, if you have teenagers, you know what that means. There were 2 rules in our house. Number 1, 20 paces behind. And number 2, don't tell anybody whose dad you are, right? Now, I know she was 16 because that was the end of driving. She started, and I mean, that was the beginning of driving. That was the end of the bus. So 16 years old, I walk her to the bus one day. I said, and I kind of waved goodbye. And on my way home, I start beating myself up because I'd forgotten to tell her I was going to be traveling that day. I never liked my kids to come home to surprises. It bothered me all day. I'm in Detroit, Michigan at 4 o'clock that afternoon. And I think to myself, I can call home now and catch this one before she goes to soccer practice. So I call home and my 16-year-old answers on cue. She said, hello? I said, hello. And she hung up on me. Now, if you've ever had a 16-year-old daughter, you know this could be one of a billion things going on in your house at any given time. I'm not surprised. So I call back right away, and my wife answers, and she is howling, laughing. I said, what just happened? She said, my 16-year-old answered the phone, said hello, and hung up. My wife said to her, who was on the phone? She said, I don't know. Dad got it. Okay, so... By the way, if you are very left-brain analytical, I will drive you crazy because I tend not to use notes. I jump around. But we were asking about Velcro, believe it or not. Anybody know how Velcro was discovered, where it comes from? Anybody? Yeah, Rob. Absolutely. It was actually, we'll be politically correct, it was a woman and her dog. A hunting party in Switzerland. Walks out of the woods one day, looks down, her dog is covered with burrs. She looks up, she says, Velcro. Okay, maybe it wasn't that quick. I don't know. Maybe she said ch and they couldn't spell it. So what all these people realize is that there's more than one right answer to every single challenge. This woman could have looked down and said, ooh, burrs, what a problem. Instead, she looked down and said, ooh, burrs, what a challenge. Wonder what the opportunity is. And you can give me any problem in your business today and say, ooh, what a problem. Or let's say, ooh, what a challenge. Let's figure out what the second right answer is. Everybody okay? Yeah. You've been great. Give yourselves a hand, guys. Thank you for being here.